everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Josh Smith. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for the Home Services Division here at Scorpion, and we have a fantastic conversation for you today, along with quite the rap sheet of panelists here on the board for the discussion. I want to introduce our panelists to you so you know exactly where you're getting the expertise from, because we got a powerhouse. So we have Rustin Kretz, who's the CEO of Scorpion. He's helped build a fantastic company with great culture, great products, and an even better group of people. We have Eric Riveni, who's the President of Home Services here at Scorpion. He's been with Scorpion for over a decade and has successfully led Scorpion in many different areas throughout his career. Timmy Flynn, he has started learning this business 25 years ago. And he's still learning today. He says change is the only thing that we can count on. And he is the owner of Winters Home Services in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And he is here today because he can save another owner from a few missteps. If he can do that, he's all in. We have Dan Dowdy, who's a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer with 20 years of leadership experience for the trades. Dan's a master plumber in the state of Texas. As the founder of Built for the Trades, Dan is transforming home service businesses through leadership development, coaching, training, and mastermind groups. And last but not least, we have Susan Frew, who's a successful CEO, businesswoman, public speaker, motivator, and business thought leader for more than 20 years. The list literally goes on with this woman. Susan has found her audience with construction trade organizations, and she is the former international GM for AT&T Wireless, 10-year business coach, ESPN radio host, SBA trainer, and current president of Sunshine Plumbing, Heating, and Air. So everyone, welcome to the panel discussion today. And the topic today is one that I think is going to be really fascinating for a lot of business owners. Sometimes it's something that we don't really think about too much. But in today's landscape, just as businesses continue to evolve, technology continues to increase the demands that consumers have. It's a really important topic, and that is marketing technology. And we're going to dive into some tips and trends. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and dive right in, and we'll get the conversation started. You guys ready?
Yeah, I just want to know from Tim, though, talking about change, being a Pats fan for as long as you have been, like, is now the time to change to the Niners?
Here we go. So we have to start off like this, right? You know, you realize there are probably thousands of people watching this, and you want to go, I'm going to be a 49ers fan from now on, just so you know.
All
Yeah,
right.
There it is.
For the
Ready
next
first.
only because Jim, what's his name? Garoppolo's there.
I like that.
Awesome. All right, first question I want to throw over to Dan. We have a few business owners on the call, but I'm going to start with Dan over here. As a new business owner, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
In which business?
Let's go with
Built for the Trades or S&D?
S&D. Let's start with S&D on the plumbing side. When you started taking ownership of the business, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early stages?
I probably the early stages was just doing really good training. That was one of the biggest challenges I faced, because I really had nobody in my life to show me what that looked like. So it was a lot of trial and error. And so now that's what I do a lot with Built for the Trades, is coach people through that process of what it looks like to have a great agenda and to really get good engagement with your team and good follow-up. So that was probably one of the biggest things I was working on early.
Yeah, I'm curious to get Susan and Tim's thoughts on here. Susan, let's go ahead and jump over to you.
Well, for us, I think the most challenging thing that I wasn't prepared for, and I had coached 17 different trades prior to starting Sunshine Plumbing, Heating, Air, so sort of had an idea about how difficult it was going to be to find and retain good employees. I think that was, we could have grown 3 times as fast as we did if we could have kept getting great people to stay on board. I think that the people listening are probably going to agree with them being that at the top of the list of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I think it's something in a large scale we still kind of see today, finding good people, good employees. We have generational differences and opportunities to overcome. So Tim, do you have any other thoughts? What was the most challenging thing for you?
Besides losing the Super Bowl, I think that one of the biggest pieces is always going to be finding enough people. So we definitely never have enough people, but I always feel as though the correct size shop or the correct size footprint to operate your business in, I see a lot of people buying these monuments to their trade, 5,000, 20,000, 15, 50,000 square foot buildings and warehouses to put their buildings and house their people in. So I've always felt as though learning the right footprint for a building, for a business is crucial. And I'm learning that over and over again. And again, because of keeps changing. So.
Yeah. Tim, do you have anything like you wish you knew when you started, like that you know now?
I really wish I believed that I wasn't good in the warehouse business. I believe that I was really good at it. I am absolutely bad at it. I don't manage warehouse things very well. I don't manage stuff on the truck very well. I'm just not good at it. So I think knowing that would have helped me get more understanding around that. But at the end of the day, I'm really a better trainer and a better coach than I am a warehouse manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of money in those stupid warehouses too.
I know from our discussions, there definitely has been. Dan, do you have anything like you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out?
Yeah, I think for me it was just the importance of having a clear vision, and actually having it in writing is something that I wish I would have known early on, because between a clear vision and knowing your numbers, you can operate a pretty successful business. So that's probably mine.
Yeah. Susan, how about you?
I think the key performance indicators are really key for me, and I think a lot of people would also think that's true for them. And we were really clear on our key performance indicators in the beginning, and that's because we were networking with other people in the trades that were ahead of us, and we listened to the experience of others and didn't try to figure everything out on our own. Even though I had been coaching for a long time, I did not know a lot of the industry metrics that I was able to discover, and it helped a lot.
Yeah. So we've seen some pretty dramatic changes happen in the industry. I think just with consumer behavior in general over the years, right? We're seeing cell phone usage increase, mobile usage increase. Anybody who's looked at their website traffic, who's had a website for more than 10 years, they've probably seen a big shift go from desktop to mobile, right? So we're seeing consumers behave differently because of the advancements in technology. Susan, I want to throw this one your way. What are some of the ways you utilize technology to help your business?
Well, in 2016, which a lot of people know, we received the trademark and patent on Video Plumber. And we started doing Video Plumber, which is a way for us to remote diagnose problems in people's homes. We did that as a response to the real estate industry. We love our realtors, but they are the ones that the day of closing are running around with their hair on fire. They need a quote right now. They a lot of times don't have any intention of actually doing the work. They just need it to negotiate at the table. And we didn't want to offend our real estate community, but we also didn't want to send a truck clear across town to do an estimate where work might not be performed next week, if not ever. So we started using Video Plumber, and now it has become, absolutely a staple on how we can diagnose and we can do training in the future. And I think that's probably just going to continue until it's a point where you can diagnose via drone technology, perhaps. Drone shows up at your door, you open it up, they come in, they diagnose the problem, report it back to the office, and then if the client wants to have the work fixed, then you dispatch a truck in order to save on manpower and energy and money. So
that's such a good example, and you latched on something really, really key, which is you found a way to help service one of your customer bases with leveraging technology. Tim, have you found any ways that you've been able to do that as well in your business? Anything similar?
Well, I mean, if we have iPads and going paperless, and I don't know if paperless is such a good thing or a bad thing nowadays, but You know, I'm looking forward to the day when we can have an autonomous vehicle drop off one of our guys in front of a home and, you know, do the job, and then we don't have to park the vehicle, just kind of orbits around and we just jump in when we're ready to go. But
Yeah.
the biggest technology change I've seen is that I think all of our dollars count now for advertising, as where before we took like a big old shotgun approach
Yeah.
and we sent out emails and cards, and we did web, and now we're doing social, but we were really spreading the pattern of the shotgun pretty wide to try to catch as many people as possible. But now we're actually spending way less and adding way more.
Yeah. Yeah. What was one of the big, I guess, the big advancements that you saw over the course of building Winters that was kind of instrumental in that change with how you started viewing, I guess, what we would call marketing technology, where you started to, you know, stop the shotgun approach and all of a sudden get a bit more isolated and focused in your approach to where you're spending dollars? Was there any kind of catalyst or piece of technology that you saw, like just in general?
Listening to people that sell on fear will keep any owner from moving away from something that doesn't work correctly. So back in the day when we were all throwing money at the yellow pages, if you didn't pay them their bounty or their ransom, they would be saying to you, well, you're going to lose your placement in the book. That means you'll lose business. So that's a fear-driven tactic. As where if we're in digital space or advertising, marketing, and online, if something isn't working in a day or two, you can end it. You can stop. No more fear. So that's actually a huge advantage for me nowadays, making decisions based on data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan, I want to jump over to you. In terms of technology, when you were running the S&D side of things, did you have any must-haves in your toolkit when it came to technology for the business?
Yeah, Josh, you know, thinking about technology, I remember the days also shifting out of the phone book and going to online marketing. But also for me, it's just having a good CRM program that allowed our technicians to go paperless. That was always a big buzzword. Everybody wanted to be paperless, but nobody could really figure out how to get there. There's a lot of failed programs we tried in the process. So I think that's big, not only for the paperless reasons and the experience that customers receive, but also for the numbers, you know, getting that instant feedback, whether it's on your marketing or on your sales or any other numbers you're looking at. It becomes easy to shift your company week by week to maximize profit.
Yeah. I'm going to throw it over, shift gears a little bit, you know, now that we're on this train of technology here, and go to Rustin over at Scorpion.
Over in San Francisco.
What do you think the future looks like with respect to marketing technology? As someone who's
yeah, I think what we see using all the data that we have is it's using data to the home service provider's advantage. So it's interesting to talk about, you know, the KPIs and tracking that and looking at the high level. But when you look at advertising, or even like Tim was talking about social, how are you spending to the right people, the right time, in the right locations, the places you want to send people out to, and how are we doing that properly? And then at the end of the day, what is that doing to generate revenue? And that's the most important thing to manage your advertising these days. And so I think that the more you're going to see is more automation, more machine learning, more focus on letting the data speak for itself. It's not guesswork. And so I think that we've seen that a lot, is that you can say, what does my ideal profile for a customer look like? And then how am I going to go after those exact types of people and get more precise with how you spend your money? And I think Tim's seen that is before, you know, spending double what he was and getting less than he's getting today, just because there was no strategy there. And we weren't, at the time, he wasn't, didn't have someone using data properly to make the right decision. So I see that's going to be common. And I think that there's going to be more and more channels. And it's interesting what Susan was talking about is, I think the way to interface with clients, and it could be through video. I think, and we've seen the buzz in home services, especially, and honestly across the country in all verticals, is people moving to more video chats, Zoom meetings, even just FaceTime. And because to prevent having a tech go out there, waste 2 hours of the day maybe have to charge a trip fee, maybe not, and fight over that, create a bad experience. But if you can do it over video, people are going to go migrate towards that because it's smart and it's going to save them money. And if they have a good system for it, it could be a good experience to see what's going on. So I think there's a lot you'll see using data across email, across social, across even just channels of communication, chat, ways to interact with people. I think you're going to see a lot of changes over the next couple of years of just people improving on what we have today, so that it's more like almost what Tim was saying about the autonomous vehicle. It's sort of like you can say, hey, here's my KPI, here's where I want to go. Now let the machine do the work and give me my leads and give me my customers, and now here's the way I interact with them. I think tech's going to be huge over the next, probably decade of growth. I think we're going to see businesses change, and the ones that adapt and take advantage of that are going to win.
Yeah.
Can I just jump on that for a second, Josh, for a second? Did you see where Amazon just bought Zook? Zook is an autonomous vehicle, and I have some thoughts about vehicles. Some people are making autonomous vehicles or electric vehicles with a steering wheel, right? Why would you even need a steering wheel in a vehicle anymore? So where are those things going to get removed in this business that we're in? Imagine having Amazon deliver a product to a home autonomously, and that sink, toilet, furnace, whatever got delivered, and now we know in that area we can go to that customer and possibly solicit them for work and what they're based upon what they're buying, based upon their data, and then get somebody there autonomously. Don't even have to park. We can just hover the vehicle around until we're ready to go. It takes out Uber even, because we can have a vehicle go drive around with no one in it, and when we're ready, come get us, our own vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, think about how that's going to work, Tim, for Postmates or any of these types of food delivery places. I mean, a lot of people are using them these days, but if the car could just drop off in front of the restaurant, you drop it in and it drives to you, whoever does that is going to make a killing, right?
We're going to give that to Bird. We're going to have him figure that out.
Yeah. Speaking of Bird, speaking of Eric, I want to throw things over to his way with respect to this. So what are some of the changes that you've seen as marketing has evolved over the years? I think Rue mentioned it, Rustin mentioned it, about having the incorporation of like new channels are coming into play. What are some of the changes you've seen happen over the years that have led to potentially like the evolution of marketing technology and the need for things like to incorporate more machine learning and things like that?
Sure. Well, I think the main thing that we're seeing is over time, as we're putting more channels out there that are digital, we're seeing that we're getting a lot more data back that we didn't have before. And while there's plenty of channels to advertise in, whether it's print or yellow pages, Tim was talking about, television commercials, we're finding now we're able to attribute the exact where the customer actually came from and how the path they took to get there, which leads to a lot more thought out and the decision-based data-based decisions, right, of what we're going to be doing going forward, which takes out a lot of the guesswork and actually then allows us to even advertise in some of those non-digital channels using some of that data to even improve those. So I mean, it's really all, we've been talking about it, but it's really all data driven of where we're going and taking out just a lot of the guesswork to make every dollar count that much more, which is a beautiful thing for people who not everyone has just the deep pockets that sometimes it takes to do a national commercial. So you've got to really figure out where you're gonna make the most impact with every dollar you spend.
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic, I think, for where we're at right now. We've seen kind of seeds of this happening and this evolution happening over the course of the past couple of years with what you said, this customer journey and these different touch points. And I would argue one of the most challenging things from a marketing perspective for a business owner to deal with right now is how they assign what we would call in the marketing world attribution, right? How do you know which channel's working and which one's not? And with the complexity of adding channels, how much more difficult is it to do that. So Eric, we'll start with you, and then I want to bounce over to Rustin too. How do you handle that that look from the marketing perspective to know whether or not your marketing's producing, given that people are interacting with multiple points of your business?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's actually a great point. Even with all the data that's collected, it's usually fairly easy to see the last place that the customer converted in their journey. What takes a little more work and digging, and hopefully you're able to connect the dots depending on which phone they use to call at various times or which computers they used, is what their journey looked like. And so, sometimes it's actually really fun. You can see that someone came to the site, the website maybe, 6 months ago, when they were just kind of interested in maybe redoing, some repiping in their house or whatever it was. And they're just doing some research, and, so they visited the site, they got some information, and they came back maybe 3 months later through a different channel and got a little more information. And then they remembered, okay, Bill's Plumbing was the guy I went to. And then 3 months go by, and they're like, next thing you know, they've got a leak. It has nothing to do with what they were looking for before, but they go, oh, you know what? I have a leak that I need to get to. And they do a search, and they see, or maybe they search for Bill's Plumbing, right? And Bill's Plumbing pops up, and, Bill goes, hey, I got this lead, and looks like they already knew who I was. And that's great. So clearly it was just a, previous customer or word of mouth or whatever it is. And we have to kind of create that journey to go, actually what happened was they found you through some completely different advertisement that you were in, 6 months ago. And then you were able to stay in front of them and keep top of mind for them. So by the time they actually needed you, you were right there. And on the flip side, we've definitely seen where someone was a previous customer, but maybe it had been, 2 or 3 years since they'd used them, and they searched for, San Francisco plumber, and Bill's Plumbing happened to show up, and then they clicked on it, and then they went, oh, I used him before, and they click, and then they call, and then Bill goes, oh, this is a repeat customer. He was going to use me anyway. And then it's like, well, he actually wasn't, because he didn't search for you. He just searched for San Francisco plumber, and you just happened to still be at the right place at the right time with the right message for that customer. So it's really interesting how these different paths all work together, and using data, we're able to kind of show that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you can only hope that you're just in front of as many, visitors as possible at the right place, at the right time, with the right message to convert them for, wherever they are in the, in the sales or buying, cycle that they're in.
Yeah. Rustin, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, sometimes some great points there. Sometimes because of how many different channels you're working and operating, think about this. You could email market your client list. You could then remarket your client list so that once they hit the site, you're now seeing your ads there. You may get attribution to your email. You may get attribution to your remarketing. They may do the search like Eric said. They may see you on social. They may actually just go book you on LSAs directly and forget about all of that journey. The one thing that's important is, while you can attribute to all these channels, and you should, one thing is the top line number that we should be looking at. There's ultimate revenue goals that every home service business has. This is my annual goal, or this is my 3 or 5 year, and the marketing and your advertising budget needs to help hit that goal. And so you can try to refine some of these things, like, oh, let's cut down on social, but it's part of a broader mix that gets you that top line number. So you want to analyze these channels and make sure they're performing and testing and they're converting and doing all that work. But at the end of the day, the most important piece of it is my investment generating revenue? And you can look at that just straight up on the top line, profitable revenue. So it's a combination of, you don't want to overly micromanage it because you're cutting things out unnecessarily because you just don't see it. And display advertising is a great, email inbox advertising, a good example. You're constantly in their Gmail, but they may not convert right then, but they're seeing it. And just because they didn't convert right that second doesn't mean it's not valuable. So you have to really look at the broader mix and say, is that generating the amount of leads to the paying customers I want? Yes or no? And if it's not, then modify the mix. But yeah, it's really important to do.
That's so interesting and so powerful too. I was looking at a business's attribution sheet because they were getting into this segmentation, right, a little bit. And when you step down to it, you match up everything through tracking numbers. That's why data is so powerful. You're matching up tracking numbers to the last attribution, to what Eric was saying. You have this last point of contact, so to speak. And you dive into the their attribution sheet, and they had this, like, just one lead for an example. It was a $2,500 lead that was attributed to their chat. Their chat got the attribution, like as if the chat generated the lead, right? Where
Right.
that's just such a clear example of, look at all the steps that were missing
Yeah.
to lead up to that chat actually taking place, which were
Yeah.
all valid points that contributed to that $2,500 job actually getting booked, right?
But it's death by 1,000 cuts for a business owner to try to go back that chat journey out to all the possible ways in which they could have found the business. And so that's, you got to tie them all together, because, you know, more times than not, and we look, the three of us at Scorpion see this all the time. Someone definitely came in from a paid ad, but then they sent the email to their wife or their husband and said, hey, check this business out. And they went to the site, got the organic lead, converted, and then organic lead goes up, but the paid doesn't get it. And then, well, let's cut it out. That's just not how it works. So you got to make sure that you look at all of the data to make those decisions. But then doing so, that one journey could have 8 different spots that they hit the client.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. You got to make sure you use the data properly. But again, that's why if you simplify it and say, this advertising, this budget should hit this revenue goal. This is what I'm shooting for. Look at it at that level, and then you can start to dive in from there.
Yeah, I want to jump over to our business owners over here and just hear your thoughts on that. Susan, let's start with you. Like, does that resonate with you? Is that what you've seen? Have you seen something different? What's your experience been?
You know, I've always believed in multiple streams of marketing, and that one builds on top of each other. And I think, you know, it all boils down to the beginning, though, of your reputation, because you can market all you want, and if your reputation is not where it needs to be, it's going to really cost you a lot of money in a lot of different ways, because you're marketing to get people to look that you're terrible. Right? So it has to be like rule number 1, that you have got to treat your customers right, do the right thing even when it's difficult, you know, be the leader in customer service, and, you know, train your team to ask for reviews, because otherwise, you know, you can tie together 20 different nice little bows of marketing, and none of it's working.
You're
So
totally right.
keep in mind. Yeah.
You're totally right. One thing that we look at from the data side is, what is the reputation of the customer, of the client for us, look like compared to what their costs for their marketing look like, cost per lead or cost per acquisition. They're always lower for the good businesses, always. Right. If you have 4.5 to 5-star ratings and you can show 1, that means you're generally a good business, unless someone's scamming those reviews. But most of the time, it means that generally you're going to answer the phone, you're going to greet the customer friendly, you're going to go out there and send someone there, and that's going to generate more business. But when you're sub 4 reviews, not only do you convert clients less, but people choose you less. So the marketing costs double, and it's just the way it works.
And you know, not only that, one other point I want to make on that is, I work a lot with a business broker in my coaching, and they did an evaluation of my business just for grins and giggles, and see, you know, when I'm ready, like what I can be expecting, because people always anticipate their business is worth 5 times. But my net promoter score was a huge catalyst in the volume and the value that I got in my business. So not only is it helping you right now in the here and now, it's going to help you in the long term, and maybe selling your business when you want to move on.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tim, what do you got?
So Josh, I'm going to pile on from all three. I mean, I agree with Susan about the review is your future compensation. The review is your uncashed blank check that you're going to get in your business. But you know, like we were talking about with the customer path with Eric and the revenues, what we're going to spend in multiple streams of marketing. My situation is, I've committed to a little under $30,000 a month for marketing, right? And I'll commit to it. I commit to it, and before this even started, I mentioned that we had the biggest month we've ever had. We have shut off LSA and we shut off PPC for over 15 days, and we're still booked to the end of this week. So without the investment of the previous months, without the investment of the reputation, and even trying to figure out the customer path and journey, right? I don't even know how we would have got to our, right now less is more. We're getting more out of our marketing for less money. And so with that all said, if I had to go and look at it, consistency in the marketing and get the reviews are the future revenue of your business when you want to cash out.
And you just broke 1,000, Tim. I saw.
I broke 1,000. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Congratulations.
You.
Yeah, I think that, obviously the long-term goal is exactly what Rustin and everybody's been saying, is build that reputation, that client experience. That's really the telltale factor of how successful the business is going to be. You could pour as many dollars as you want into marketing and marketing technology. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the solid client experience, people aren't going to come back. They're not going to talk about you. You want to turn people into billboards for your business, right? I think that's really, really powerful and key. And that's a long-term versus short-term focus. Like long-term, you build the brand to such a degree that you're able to convert off that brand equity. People go to you just because they know who you are and they love what you do, right? That's awesome. Awesome. Good insight. I wanted to throw something over to Dan here. What are some of the future possibilities that you'd like to see for how technology can be leveraged to improve your business's marketing performance and scale? Just from the businesses you've seen, you've worked with Built for the Trades, kind of curious of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Josh, as far as technology, really building relationships, I think, is easier than ever and more important than ever, because when it comes to branding and people calling you back, the content marketing is huge, but what people have done for years now is they've paid somebody to do content marketing for them. And what the future is in the next 2 or 3 years is everybody's going to be actually branding themselves in-house, to where you're shooting video, you're taking pictures, you're talking to customers, you're entertaining, you're doing all these things consistently. So when it comes to marketing and being consistent and kind of building that snowball you want to build, right now people need to start leveraging the smartphone, like putting it up and shooting a video and sharing value with your customer, not selling. Because in the past, people did that a lot through TV and radio. Now it's cheaper than ever to use social, email marketing, all kinds of different areas of content marketing to really start getting ahead of the curve. Because I think it's, a lot of companies are already doing it well. Compared to 2 years ago when I was doing it not that well, now I look at it, there's a lot of companies doing it really well, but there's still a lot of companies who don't see the value in it, and they don't have somebody in-house who's helping complement what their internet marketing company is doing. And I think that's the next move a lot of companies need to make, is bring somebody in-house who could really get personal with the content.
Yeah, Susan, what's on your list of like future possibilities you'd love to see with technology for where your business is at?
Well, I heard Tim say earlier about not looking at your real estate and your big giant shop. We did something really bold at the end of last year. We moved out of our 5,000 square foot shop and we put our offices in my house, which I love. And we still have a shop with an office, but it's much smaller. It's not out on the highway. It's not necessary. And we were prepared for this COVID, the beginning of it and everything else, because we were already prepared for anyone to work remote at any time. And, our technicians already take their trucks home and they only come in once a week, but we did Zoom meetings and we were able to do more of them and bring in all of these really great guest speakers that we may or may not have had in the past. So we just leveraged the technology just like everyone else and ran our company remote. And my employees are so much happier. I'm happier. I'm saving thousands of dollars a month on an office that we didn't need, and it was just prestige and it was ego, and we just didn't need that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So we're delighted with our change.
Yeah. Tim, what about you on that front? Sound like you had some
First,
thoughts.
I mean, that's fantastic, Susan. I mean, that's really, congratulations. I'm in that transition right now where we're going from 5,000 square feet and now we're into about 2,000. The guys always took their trucks home. But I think, if there's other smaller businesses out there listening to this, you can be an Amazon reseller and do $25 million a year. You can do, $1 million a year in your living room, or you can do $1 million a year in a storefront on a major highway or whatever you want to do. But the key to this is that from going from the years ago to present, I always thought I needed to have that big spot, that big warehouse, and you just don't need to have it. You don't want to be in the warehouse business, don't do it. If I had a wish list of the things that I wanted, I would love to see my AI taking my inbound calls, and I would like to see content being built from my customer database of what they may need, what they have needed. I'd love to see, robots looking around my dispatch system, my CRM, just to see where I could improve things, maybe the best route to take for fuel for now until we switch over to electric vehicles. And I got to tell you something, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about having it be autonomous and saving on insurance and saving on drivers and saving on people, trying to find a parking spot. I'm excited about having the ability to look and see how to serve the customers better and still getting a good review. So I think it's all really good information, but hats off to Sue for doing that, months and years ago before it was ever necessary.
That's Susan, always forward thinking.
She was video chatting 4 years ago when no one was doing it. Now everyone wants to do it. So.
Well,
Right.
The thing that I am stuck with though, and I'm still trying to find a buyer, is my $40,000 electric light up sign that I had on the highway, because I don't know what to do with it. And there's not a big market for it out there, I'll tell you.
Throw it on eBay, see what happens.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
If it said the 49ers over the top, I may have a buyer for you.
I'm just going to send it to Scorpion. Someone will find use for it there.
On top of the building.
On top of the building. There you go. Our unoccupied building.
Oh, God.
And I want to throw something over to Eric, going back to something we were talking about a bit earlier. When it comes to marketing technology, Rustin had a great talk about looking up on the top line revenue and not getting isolated into specific channels. I want to hear from Eric, from your perspective. Why is it so important to look at total revenue and not just those smaller metrics like cost per click or cost per lead? What's the value of getting out of those, that tall grass, as it were, those weeds?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and look, it's not to say that your cost per click and your cost per lead aren't important, because certainly they are, but ultimately they don't mean anything if your revenue has tanked, or they don't mean anything if your revenue is amazing, even though your cost per lead might be really high. There's just a lot of factors that come into play when you're looking at those metrics that just looking at them on their own, it doesn't tell the entire story. For example, maybe, you analyzed and reconfigured your marketing campaign so that you're getting less leads overall, but you've weeded out a bunch of like the garbage spam. And so now your cost per lead has actually gone up, but they're far more valuable and they're converting at a far higher clip to where your revenue is much increased. I think most business owners would, jump for joy at that. But if you simply take a step back and go, oh, my cost per lead has gone through the roof, you're not looking at the overall picture. And if you act just off of that, it could be, pretty detrimental decision, to your business. And so you always have to look at the top line along with the other metrics, that you're keeping to ensure that you're moving towards your ultimate goal of growth or, potentially, retirement, whatever it is that you want to get there based off of the revenue of the business. I'm looking at you, Tim. I see that smile.
I know you are. The quality of the revenue is interesting too. Like Sue said, she likes to have multiple lines, multiple sources of income, but the quality of the revenue that goes, if you could do a job and have a 50% gross margin, it may not be as great as doing a job with 70% if it was a drain call, where there's no materials involved. looking at how that lead was generated as part of the quality of that revenue. So you'll get to your retirement point a lot better and faster if you're looking at the quality of your top line and all the way through. So I think that, looking at those lines are going to be incredibly important in the future. They still are now, but it's just tough to look at.
Yeah. I always say, because looking at the way that people can manipulate those smaller metrics, the cost per clicks and the cost per leads, we know, being in this business for so long, we could cut it in half if you want to. And the way to do that is start bidding on stuff that's not going to convert new customers, the ones that you want, the quality of customer, right? It's very easy strategy. But if that's what you really want, that's when you start getting those spam, that junk. So you got to blend it to find, well, we need to get this quality, we need to get this X amount of quality, and how do we do it? So it is important to track. It's really important to look at, but what is it actually converting to? That's more important. So if you had $100 cost per lead, but it was generating great customers, you pay it all day long. But if you'd pay $500 for a great lead for a commercial property that's going to pay you $100,000 for a project, yeah, you do it. But you shouldn't pay $500 for that lead for a drain cleaning. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially if you don't convert it, then it's, we'll convert one out of two, it's $1,000. That's not worth it. So it's being smart about the types of things that you're trying to drive, and being smart about the cost of what you're trying to drive as well. And so each one of those types of services has different values. So you can't just bundle it all into one. You have to look at each one individually. But it's very important to look at. But does it drive quality of revenue, Tim? That's the best way to look at it.
Key. Powerful. I have a few questions as we kind of round out here this session, which I think has been awesome to hear from everybody, and there's so much value packed in here. But I got a few questions from our registrants that I wanted to throw to each of you. One of the questions that came up is the best practices for launching in a new city. I wanted to throw this one to Tim your way. I know this is something you've had some experiences with. What advice would you give somebody who's looking to launch in a new city?
I've spent a lot of time with Rue about the strategy of opening up in new cities and, getting direction from. I would look at where you're doing business as in the zip codes that you're converting the highest, and the zip codes that you are having the most success. And I'd even look at where your staff is living, where your people are living and residing. I think that it's not an easy task to undertake. I think that it's going to take a lot of planning to make it happen. You have to do a lot of training. And are you going to open a brick and mortar type of a store? Are you going to have people show up there for work every day, technicians, etc.? I always feel as though you're far better served having one centrally located administrative office and then remote offices that might have technicians, a dumpster, some materials. And perhaps, you can use the address of that new location for a better GMB, a Google My Business page, a better LSA listing, stronger, and go to where your best reviews are. It may not be the most strategic spot, but it could be the most profitable spot. You just got to look at the data a little bit more critically.
Yeah, love that. Rustin, I want to jump over to you, given the conversation that you all had. Why is it so important to look at top revenue generating zip codes, where your reputation is, and all of those factors when you assess where you want to branch into when you're looking at a new city?
I think there's a couple things to look at in growth like that. One, we talked about it right at the start, is getting the right people. So you're going to have people in that area. You want to make sure that you have a great team in the area that you can trust that's going to provide that service to expand your brand even farther. You don't want to just hire anyone and then deliver worse service because it's farther away. So there's some complexity as you grow offices where you want to make sure you maintain the culture, the standards, et cetera. So that's first. Second is that if you just took a look at Tim as an example, you can look at what Tim's ideal clients look like, the ones that generate his quality of earnings, and where they're located, where's the common places he's taken his techs to drive revenue. Well, what other areas around look similar that are going to follow that format? And if they're already, so we already have some reviews and reputation in the market, it may be an ideal place to go. But you really want to analyze that geo. So is it going to be the right place that's going to drive revenue? Are they more affluent areas where some of the areas that Tim serves, when he goes into those markets, he can get a little bit of a premium because he delivers a premium service, which is important. But if you're not, then it's harder to charge that. So making sure that you're going to the right areas with the right people and entering a new market, which is a little bit different. Look, Tim just talked about it earlier. I can slow down a bit because I'm so busy. But when you enter a new market, you can't do that. You got to be known now. So who's Winters in the new area? Now you got to change the game. Now you can't think about cost per click and cost per lead. You got to think about, I got to get brand immersion. I'm going to grow my brand there. People need to know who I am so that I get my reviews there, so that I get awareness there. It's just a different game. But doing it smart and planning it up front, that's how you're going to get to that growth that you want. And not just by doing it by whim. And Tim spent a lot of time planning that. So that's going to pay off. Yeah.
Which all went out the window during COVID, by the way.
Like everything else.
Nothing like a pandemic to ruin those plans. Not to make light of the situation, I apologize if anyone.
Well, you were getting married during the pandemic, so I was supposed to go out east. I was excited.
Next question.
That'll happen, just not right away, I guess.
Yeah.
Soon enough.
I want to throw another one over to Susan. Susan, when you're in a small market with a lot of competition, and not that you're in a small market, obviously the Denver market's a very massive market, but I know in growing your business, you started off in Commerce City and in some smaller suburb areas. So you had to really establish a good foothold there. What are some of the ways organically you can stay ahead of your competition?
Well, we entered the Denver metro market with 950 competitors in 2012. So that's a lot, I think. And we really set ourselves apart by finding a really strong vertical with the woman market. So the baby boomer women have more money in our country than any other demographic. And so I just joined every single women's group that I could possibly join, the Women's Chamber. And I've been very blessed that I was able to do a TED talk about women in the trades, and I was starting to get speaking gigs around town. Whenever I just made a phone call, I was able to get a few, and then I got more and more customers that way, and it was just really creative. But then last December, we bought another company in another geo area that we have always liked that area, but it's far for us. It's like 40 minutes from our shop. But we just kept their name and kept their brand, and it's working out killer for us. So now we're able to serve two different demographic areas with two different strategies, and we may merge the names together at some point, but right now I'm really happy to leave it as it is. Awesome.
Rue, Rustin, again, to toggle back and forth between the two. You mentioned something early on I want to revisit because it was geared towards a specific question that actually one of our registrants had. That's how do internet display ads and remarketing play into your strategies for home service companies?
This is the question everyone wanted to know, I guess, right? No, I'm just kidding. Look, it's all part of the mix, right? It's all part of the different types of channels you can invest your advertising dollar for. Now, everyone has different ad budgets, and everyone lives and works in different metros or geos. So not everything is the right time to turn on one or the other. And so, for example, I would not advise Tim to go run display advertising right this minute because he is crushing it. He's turned off paid advertising and he's got enough leads right now and he's booked out. There's no reason necessarily to run that at this moment. But should Tim run remarketing? I would say yes, because anyone coming to their site to Winters and getting to see the site, should he run a little something to remind them that maybe they didn't convert? It's so inexpensive. And if that gets him back a $20 cost per lead, if we wanted to measure that, it may not be a bad idea. But everyone has a different state of where they are today, and it changes. I mean, sometimes I remember being with Tim and he's like, I need to get more calls this morning. I need them now. And so there's a strategy for that. And then there's a strategy for the long-term game. But I think it's important to put the display ads on the right sites in front of your right customers who are visiting. So Susan mentioned women groups, right? It's perfect to make sure that you have a display strategy around female visitors and their demographics, because that is something that resonates. And that's a very smart play. So maybe with that, there's a strategy around that. Anyway, everyone's different. And I think it's just part of a good mix. I have a question though, Josh. I'm curious for Dan. When you coach and you're talking to these business owners, what's the most common thing that you feel that they struggle with? That when you come in, this is the problem that they have. Do you see something in common like that?
Is that specifically for marketing or just
for anything? Actually, I'm just curious, as business owners, is there one common challenge that they all seem to have when you come in there, or is it all different?
I mean, it really just depends on the size of the company I'm working with. So I think a lot of companies reach what I call just their capacity of their knowledge and what they can do. Typically between a $1 million and $2 million annual revenue mark, they reach that point, and a lot of it has to do with being able to, develop a vision, build systems, understand their numbers, all the different things that most owners do not know how to do in the trades, because a lot of them are tradesmen to start, right? Not business people. So they go in, they serve, they do the best they can, and all of a sudden their business blows up. Now what do I do? Mm-hmm. And so and really kind of a broad answer is a little bit of everything, but it's mainly just reaching that capacity of knowledge and needing somebody to come in and show you how to put the pieces together is really it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Dan, you also mentioned something a bit earlier too, that I want to revisit just because it actually came up in an audience question. I think it's a great question. What would be a good approach to a consistent social media strategy, and what type of content would you recommend sharing?
That is a great question. So yeah, as far as social media content, to me, I think having a balance of hiring a company that does blogs and some more generic posts, and kind of combining that with your own personal things, like what's happening in your company, what are events you're doing together, what are specials that you're offering, here's how to fix this thing, here's how to serve a customer. I think really gearing it and bringing those two together, but also gearing a lot of your social media marketing towards adding value to your customers and not selling is big. As far as how often you post and different things like that, I'm not the expert in that. But I do know that daily is ideal, and just being consistent. Because once again, like, you want to have a brand that people see, they don't need you when they see you right away typically. So there's not like an instant ROI that you have. Like most business owners want, like, if I put $100 here, I'm going to get a phone call, right? That's not the way you play social media. It's got to be the long game. So what happens when you start playing social media really well is everything else goes down. Like, all your costs per leads go down, and you start maximizing your marketing everywhere else. And then yes, you might get a few that trickle in from social media that you can actually track. So, and really what business owners need to not focus on is how many leads I'm getting from that source, and more on how is it affecting the entire brand and all the marketing that I'm currently doing.
How do you do it, Dan? Because you're consistent on social these days, but every day you got to come with a topic, you got to be prepared, you got to do your video. And what's some advice for people who aren't as comfortable with doing it like you are, to just get out there and do it? I mean, what do you tell people?
Really, I think it's all about, you are your biggest critic, right? I mean, anytime you turn a camera on or take a picture, you're always, or maybe you're living by the likes or the shares or the comments. I mean, I catch myself getting caught up in the same thing, and I realize that it's not about that, because how many thousands of people scroll that and see that and never hit like? Right. I mean, I'm that guy on social media, and I may be on there and I don't really comment or like anything, but I may scroll through. But you're making an impact every time you're doing it if you're giving good information. And so when it comes to people listening to this that want to get started and really branding themselves and more in-house in what they're doing, is just turn on the camera and just do it, because it's always going to be bad at first. But that's the thing is that nobody, if you're not willing to do it, then you're going to get passed up by your competitors, because there's somebody out there who says, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and just do it. And they do it and they do it and they do it every day, and they get consistent. Yeah. And when I was running S&D, for me, I was like super streaky, where I would like spend a month doing live and shooting video, and it was awesome. And then something would happen in the company, and it would kind of like knock me off my horse there, and I would go like 2 or 3 months and not do anything.
Yeah.
And I'd had my marketing person like, get me back in gear. So I wanted to be consistent. But at Built for the Trades, it's just knowing that, like when this pandemic hit, like how do I serve my customers from my location? Well, I turn the camera on, and I start going above and beyond for my clients. And then I started that In the Trenches show. Josh has been on it quite a bit. And it's like, it all started with an idea of how can I take 10 minutes and add value to the people on Facebook. And I just kind of turned the camera on and started doing it. And it's turned out to be something I do weekly. So that's really it, man. There's no secret.
What's interesting about it is that a lot of what we talked about today is automation, and we had some machine learning, and we're talking about technology. And the one piece, which is just so important to the customer, is I get to know that Susan is a real person who's like great person, and I like to hear what she has to say, and Dan the same way, and Tim the same way. And the customer, that's an advantage that all businesses have, but it's sometimes difficult to just say, okay, here I am. I'm this business owner who just broke that $2 million mark, and now I really want to say, I'm a brand, let's talk to our customers. It may not necessarily have to be someone, the owner, if they're not comfortable, but one of the people at the business who can be the voice of the brand. And customers do appreciate it because they do scroll, but they do see it. And they may not like it, but they did see it for a little bit, and they're going to remember the brand. So I think it's great to be consistent. And for the new people who haven't tried it, just go for it, right? It's going to be bad at first, like you said, but just say something of value. It could even be saying hi.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I like doing the content, but I don't really like knowing like when to post it, how to make it look pretty, all those different things. So for business owners who are like that, they don't mind maybe getting in front of the camera, but they don't really know how to channel it at the right time, and that's why you hire somebody to do it.
Yeah.
And to do it well, and so it's just knowing what you're good at, because as a business owner at a $2 million company, you don't want to spend 3 days a week trying to figure out social media. That's not your game, right? You can hire somebody young to come in, be the person to do it and do it really well. And also it's good to be in all areas, but I really think it's good to be really good at one or two social media areas, like really get it dialed in, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. I think being consistent and being really good, and it all goes back to who is your avatar, like who are you marketing to? You have to know that. You really have to know that as a business, and that's even going into other markets. It's like, what's the home values that you want to service, or the businesses, like how many people live in that area, and that all plays a big role into everything you do in marketing. So.
For sure. Hi, Jack.
Just to round that out a little bit, going back to what Sue said about reviews, if you could have somebody start on social media just reading their own reviews, I think they'd be well served.
Yeah. I was just gonna tag on to what Dan was saying too. Even though you can't see my mouth moving, hopefully y'all can hear my voice speaking. When it comes to social media too, I think it's really, really important to identify what your customers want to hear about. We talk often in the internet world about an FAQ page or frequently asked questions. Make sure your CSRs and your texts are hot off the press with what your customers are asking. Develop and that's your content. That's your content list, right? So if you develop your top 50 FAQs, use that as a running list of the videos that you're going to produce, and then take an opportunity to batch produce them. Produce 5 at a time, 10 at a time. You have your cell phone; it's a powerful tool, and that could be a really awesome way to put videos on YouTube and social media. And the benefit that you have on YouTube and Google utilizing video, which is a really obviously powerful medium, is YouTube's a search engine. Like, that's the benefit that it has over Facebook, Instagram, and any of the social media channels, is people go to YouTube to find things, to ask questions, to get answers. And so it's a real powerful way to get in front of your client base, especially when you marry that together with some proper planning of, hey, these are the questions that people are actually asking, so let's actually go attack those first. So it's a really good question. And I think especially with everybody being at home more, Facebook usage rates, Instagram usage rates are up higher than they have ever been. This is a powerful time to make sure you're present be top of mind when it comes to social media. So awesome.
Great.
Well, you know what, everyone, this has been awesome. Really a lot of value that's been packed into here. I really, really appreciate all of your time. I know you all have very busy schedules, so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. For everybody listening,
Thank you.
I just want to let you know we do have 2 more webinars coming as a part of the summer series for home services on building your team and optimizing your operations. So stay tuned for those. In the meantime, you can catch more of this awesome information on the Sharpest Tool podcast. So for more information on how you can help your business succeed, you'll definitely want to check that out. We feature awesome guests, such as some of the fine folks here on this webinar. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We'll hope to see you in person soon. Everybody, take care.